I remember having panic attacks at parties, sitting in joint circles, waiting for the joint to be passed to me, waiting to see how high I could make the panic go. And then there's right now, having a panic attack at home about how I only used to smoke, and how maybe I'm not dealing with any of these demons correctly. This poem will not use metaphors, but it will use similes, which are like metaphors, which describe exactly what something is without accurately describing it. I've been looking for the right word to describe myself. Something like metaphor, attempting to describe myself without really being myself. I remember this self having panic attacks at parties, and when asked what it was, I would tell people, poet. Instead of telling them I was more like a flashlight, that I was attempting to discover what's in all the dustiest boxes of my attic, which is kind of like my brain, but I don't know how to describe my brain right, and neither do many therapists who have called my brain something like constantly changing, which is just another way to say easily misdiagnosable, and when that happens, it is something like a mistake, but it's really nobody's fault, kind of like addiction, kind of like taking prescription meds that hurt you, kind of like saying, I'm a poet, just not to hate your reflection, which is kind of like a metaphor, but it's more like a simile, because you're never really looking in the mirror if you avert your own gaze, but sometimes I look at my teeth, they're kind of like my anxiety. I brush them twice a day to rid my mouth of all the cruel things I have called myself, which are kind of like self-affirmations, just negative ones. And you can do negative affirmations daily and still have high self-esteem, is what my therapist told me, which is kind of like narcissism, which is kind of like thinking you have a problem when you have none, which is kind of like marijuana addiction. So many say it doesn't exist, but I'm still so glad I stopped, and now I smoke these cigarettes. They're kind of like joints, just dangerous, and I still have the panic attacks, which are kind of like mistakes, but I know are not my fault, and sometimes I look into the mirror, which is kind of like a black hole, and I get lost in it until I forget what I look like, which is kind of like what narcissists did, which is kind of like how you memorize poems. You do them so much you forget them. You do them so much you forget them. You do them so much. You can do drugs so much you forget who you are and pretend you are someone you are almost but are not. And I am not a poet, but I am similar to one. I'm a person in healing, which is kind of like a person shaking a flashlight's batteries and shaking a flashlight's batteries and shaking a flashlight's batteries and shaking.
Get on the wheel of light, y'all.